Okay, so yesterday we were talking about Trudeau. We made like a little video about like his report card, and during that time, we touched upon some interesting conversations that I thought we could expand upon. One of them was social programs. That I felt that social programs were valid, and we needed more of them. We just had to look at the financial side of filling the pot so we could fund them, such as welfare and the child tax credit and other things like that. And you had a differing opinion. I was really, like I think welfare and the child's tax credit are a platform to which someone can jump off of to get a better life. Someone who's down on their luck, who needs to be on welfare, can use that opportunity to move forward if they take the proper steps.
Right. So, and kind of in our conversations in the past, you've talked about what that looks like coming into your family when you were a young family. Do you want to kind of
So
express
when
what
I
that
was a
meant to
young
you?
family, I was a month on welfare. I had to do I had no way to get a job. I was suffering. Uh, so I just got out of school. It was just me and then my fiance, and we were struggling to make ends meet. So I went on welfare for a month, and during that time, I spent every day looking for a job. I knocked on doors. I talked to managers, and then I landed my first group home job. But without that safety net, without that little bit of extra money, I would have been dead in the water. I would have lost everything. I wouldn't have been able to live. So I found welfare at that time. It wasn't something I wanted to be on for my whole life, but it was very important to me. And then the second thing that happened was we had the child, when I first had my children, we still weren't making a whole lot of money. And that child tax credit came in. And every time it came in, we used it for like diapers and stuff like that, or formula, stuff that we really needed. And without it, we would have really suffered.
Right. So I think the concepts and ideas of a social safety net for any nation is a great and admirable thing. The issue is that you and your family, when you found yourself in that situation and requiring that social safety net, what did you do with it? You went out and you purchased items that you required. You needed the diapers. You needed, maybe the fridge broke, right? You go out and you get a new can of paint for the house. You're using that to grow GDP, stimulate the economy, continue growth, right? Where I struggle, right, as kind of the capitalist, if you will, I'm probably the bad guy in the room in a lot of these conversations, right? Is that the average moderate to long term welfare user is not doing these things. They find themselves in a situation where they find a lifestyle that they've become accustomed to. They have multiple children. They get this tax return that they don't actually initiate. There's no productivity on their end. And then it's tax people like now yourself, upper middle class individuals and myself that end up footing the bill. And that's where I think that we've got to look and see what does this look like? If people are able to sit on it and serve, let's have a talk about serve even. Uh, we have a situation in which people were given money to stay at home and do nothing, to produce nothing, to give nothing back during a time where our nation needed mobility, right? We needed to stay at home. We needed to solve the COVID problem, but then we needed action. We needed to get jobs. We can't get people to work. So what do we do now? And that's where I have a problem, where I think most people have a problem with the social safety net concept. It's there to catch you, but it's got to get off. You got to be very quick turnaround. What are you doing? What's your proactive approach to getting off of it? And I don't think that there's enough people that are looking at it that way. And I think in Canada right now, we've brought items like guaranteed income. That's so problematic on so many different levels and scary, to be quite frank. I think that's where we've got to start looking at cutting back, putting people's money back into their pockets through other formats, whether that's tax cuts for individuals. Why do we need to be paying 35% on every dollar that we're making? 40% on every dollar that we're making. Let's cut that down. Let's allow growth that way. Get jobs.
So I don't disagree with you. I'd love my taxes to be a lot cheaper.
Right.
And you're right. But I think if you're talking about welfare, welfare is one of those one of those platforms that really is for a person that is at the bottom, the person that doesn't maybe have the skills at first to reach to the next level. It's the person that that struggles in life to make ends meet.
Well, but okay,
And
so what are
there's a
we
lot
doing?
of people like that who, yes, you're right. And I've met them, and I've known some of them that stay on it. But I've also met the hard workers, the moms that are like on it, and they're on it. But while they're on it, they're going to school. While they're on it, they're improving their lives and making better. So out of 100 people, if 5 people improve their life and make a better community, then I'm all for it. I don't care.
then
I
then we
don't
have
need to worry about
95
it.
that are then we have 95 that are abusing the system and taking advantage of the average Joe citizen that's going out and trying to do the right thing. And that's where I'm saying is that let's focus on the 5%. Let's help them, and let's let a little bit more of that 95% fall through the crack a little bit until, like, I hate to say this, and you were, when you were a young man, when I was a young man, there was a point in your life where you're like, if I want to eat today, if I want to have, a phone in my pocket, if I want to go do something, I've got to get out of bed and I've got to go make something. And that bottom, when you hit that, that's actionable. And what we don't have in Canada is the same sense of bottom that a lot of other nations around the world do. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I tend to think that that's problematic because what we do is we have a system that's catching people too high, and we don't have poverty. Like, I know that might blow a lot of people's minds when I say that. We do not have poverty in this country the way that any other time in the history of mankind that we have known poverty. And so for us to look at now where the welfare state is being taken, uh, it's insane to me. So what we need to do is we need to reassess what it is. If you're on welfare and you've got the newest iPhone because that's what you value, I'm not paying for it and you shouldn't be either.
I don't know who you know that's on welfare, and I imagine you don't know a lot of people, but they don't have the latest iPhone. If they do, it's because someone has gifted it to them. Uh,
Well, but do they have a
People on
smartphone?
welfare,
Do they got a
people
thousand
on
dollar smartphone in
welfare
their pocket?
are living at poverty. I'll agree with you. The difference between 1920s poverty and today is vastly different. I don't think someone on welfare, if they manage their money right, because I was on it and I know how it works, is going to be starving if they make the right choices, if they don't get pets, if they don't make mistakes with their money. I
Well,
agree.
how about we talk about
But
how
but
with that?
not everyone knows how to manage money. And when you have a small pot of money and you don't know how to manage it, it's hard to get out of that. It's hard to get moved forward. I think what we need to look at is not getting rid of the safety net. We need to improve the safety net. What are we doing to help teach these people the skills to manage money, the skills to get to the next step, the skills to have a self worth enough to want to improve and do and teach. Like you and I have very strong motivation to move. We're always planning the next things, the next event. This is one of those things. We're just constantly in a forward motion. That's not something everyone has. I've talked to lots of people that have great ideas, but they don't have that forward motion. And I think if we can add into the welfare system a program by which where we can teach self-awareness, self-respect, teach money management, because you know what? I struggle with money management until I met you and we started talking about how money works and how to use money and how you invest money. I really struggled. That's why I had no money. Like when I was with my wife, we probably, well, we didn't make as much as I do now, but we came close to it, but we never had money. And now that I look back and I see the things that you've taught me, I know that if I had these skills back then, I would have been a very wealthy man. I made so many vast, terrible mistakes back then with my money. So if
Right.
we can teach that, to add that into the welfare program, I think that would be a help. But to say that they have enough money to launch themselves, I just don't think that's relevant.
Well, so at the end of the day, at what point is it the government's job to educate somebody on their personal finances?
I think if we want to improve, if we want to have these social systems, which we do, we're Canadian and we want to help each other, and I think that we need to help each other, then it's our duty to find the ways to help people move forward in life. And one of the ways would be to teach finance. And I think, to tell you the truth, I think we should be teaching it in grade 3. I think it should be part of the program in every math program that we do, we should be teaching the things, some of the things you taught me, just how to use money and how interest works. And I know that they do teach some of that. So they teach how interest works, but they
Right.
don't teach how to effectively use that in the real world. So I know
Because
how to
because
I
it's
know how to figure out interest, but I don't know how to use it.
because it's liability. So at the end of the day, if the government comes and explains to you that you have a fiduciary responsibility to your family, and that's a big fancy word that says you have a financial responsibility to your family and to make appropriate decisions, right? How does the government make money? The government makes money on vices. They make money on alcohol. They now make money on marijuana. They make money on gambling. They make money on all these things. They would be slitting their own throat. So there's a very vested interest in making sure that people stay ignorant. And it's your responsibility and my responsibility to go out and educate ourselves. Nobody's going to come and say that I have to learn how to be a doctor or take care of my family's medical needs. They're going to say you're going to go to the appropriate party or that person to go and do that. And this is where we end up in this. We just ideologically are different in this way. Is I'm small government. The government shouldn't come into my household and tell me what to do or instruct me on what I should do or demand that my child or children do something. It's up to us to make those decisions. It's up to us to decide to take that initiative. And I like to think that we've done that. We've taken the initiative in what we're doing here. We've done the real estate stuff. We do the finance things. We've had an opportunity to learn. YouTube's free, baby. There's all sorts of platforms out there to learn. Now, if your priorities are different, if you don't have the mind's eye to go, I need to pick myself up with the old adage of the bootstrap, right? We've lost that in Canada to a whole generation of people. I think thankfully we're starting to see where platforms like what we're trying to build here is allowing people to come back to that. However, it's a lost generation. We have a whole bunch of people that have decided that, oh, making $30,000, $40,000 a year is okay. That's not okay. You need to keep your feet moving. What are you doing to provide for your family? And that the government cannot come in and teach people that stuff because then they're liable if they fail. And that's again, we are diametrically opposed on role of government.
Well, I think so. I agree with some of the stuff you're saying, but I don't agree with the fact that you can just YouTube it. I know where I work right now, there's a lot of families that don't have YouTube. Like it's easy for us to say that you can just YouTube it or you can Google it, or they don't have access to it. The only time they have access to it is the public library where you have to sign in and you have a limited amount of what you can look up. You have a limited amount of space of time, and you have to like go do it. So I think that's a barrier that you maybe don't understand. But the other thing that you were talking about is government and how, like, so I'm not saying government should be in our homes. I'm not saying government should be telling us what to do. I'm saying government should give us the skills to make ourselves better. So if we're going to have a free education system, which we do, and I think we have one of the better education systems in the world with flaws. There are definitely flaws. Being in it for as long as I have been, I know there's huge flaws. But I think if we look into like when I was a kid, I learned about education, I learned about math, I learned about all that. But then there was this other side where we went and we did tech things. We went to like the girls. It's a kind of anti-feminist, but the girls all went to like a beauty thing, and we all
Oh,
went to
Mac.
shop. Yeah, they all went to home ec. Yeah, that's
Right.
the word. And we all went to shop. And, like I was horrible at it because that's not the guy I am. But a lot of people in it were amazing. And then when they went to high school, they learned about small engines. And then when they went higher in high school, they got to learn into like the bigger engines, and they started working on cars, or they started working in construction, and we led them in that direction.
That's
But
when we built
now,
something.
but
When we
now
but
we
when we
just
had an
lead them into university.
right, because we had an economy that was manufacturing. Those guys that took small engine repair went off to General Electric, General Motors, Ford. They went off to Oakville and they made uh, 50, 60, $70,000 a year
But
incomes
why?
through the 90s
But
because
why?
because Canada was building things. We had a gross
Right.
domestic product that was engaged with the education system. What we have now is we have a feeder system for higher education, and the
Right.
biggest problem that we have on our plate is your gender, your sexual orientation, and your ethnicity.
So I agree with you there. That seems to be like the driving force in all things, and I'm unclear why, because I don't think as many people are even like caring about that as much. Like everyone cares about it and wants it to be healthy and happy and everything, but I don't think it's a driving force in everyone's life. But these other things, so what I was trying to say is that back then, you're right. There was GM, there was General Electric, there was all these places to push people into. Well, there's still businesses in Canada. There's still need. There's still like in Alberta. There's trades that they can't fill. They have to bring people from other countries because no one here knows how to do it.
But who would do
Why
it?
aren't we educating them in a way that people who love working with their hands, there are still people who love working with their hands. They just don't, they're just told that that's a useless skill. Like
Well,
if you
so
look at Mike Jobs is this, well, he does the dirtiest jobs or whatever, right?
love
Mark.
them.
Yeah, he's amazing. And
Yep.
that's what he talks about all the time is that we don't do that anymore. We don't teach people how to work with their hands. And I think if you taught finance, you would have more people understanding how to use finance. If you taught how to work with your hands, you would have people go into that hands. Why wouldn't we have a whole high school teaching about trades that we need? It could be computer trades, how to build a computer. Why wouldn't we have a whole high school teaching like split up? And maybe it's firefighting, maybe it's whatever it is, but it leads you into the job that you want. But no, we go to high school and we lead into university, or we lead into college, and we lead into all these jobs that are great, but there's no jobs out there anymore. Like there's
Right.
no jobs for how many teachers can there be in philosophy? How many teachers can there be in women's issues? It's just we have to fix that education system. And I think if you roll back to what we started with, which was welfare, if someone was on welfare and they had the ability to learn a trade, the ability to learn like beauty school, even back when I think there might be still some beauty schools in high school. Actually, I'm not sure about that,
But
but
what is the incentive to do it? So let me paint a picture for you. You have a young mother who ends up onto the system for all the wrong reasons, but here we are, right? So ends up onto the system, the social safety net that we have. We have it right now where our our welfare system will pay for her to go and get an education. Now, if she decides to choose basket weaving, or she decides to let's say she chooses even a business, diploma that she goes through a community college to get. Well, but if there's no further push, and she realizes that it's really hard to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to make the office for 8:30, 9 o'clock, where you're not the boss, right? You have to start somewhere, then it's easier to sit at home. And I'm not saying that that is a uniquely female perspective. That is a uniquely mid to long term welfare perspective, especially if your income is gearing your rental. If your property that you live in, that you're allowed to live in, is geared to your income and you're paying $100, $200 a month in rent, which that's an average because it's geared to income, that same property in our local area is almost $2,000. She would have to make a lot of hours and a lot of sweat equity to make that worthwhile. And what we hear all the time is we need more affordable housing. We need more affordableness for these individuals. And I go, no, we need to stop it. We need to make it be the bottom so that they hit and bounce. If we don't have the bottom, there's no bounce. If it's cushy, if it's safe, if it's everything being managed for them, there's no bounce. And that's where I'm saying is that at every point, there's kind of the old adage, right? Is that good times make weak people. Weak people make hard times. Hard times make strong people. Now that goes with everything. That goes with society, that goes with finance, it goes with war, it goes with all sorts of different things. And what you need to have an opportunity for people to bounce and have a hard time. They will solve a problem. I'm not saying starving in the street is what we need, but they need to hit a bottom.
so I agree with you. Like I've hit a lot of bottoms and I've had a lot of hard times, and each time I've come out stronger. It is a basis that you hit the bottom, and you either get up or you lie there pathetic. You become a victim, and you let
Absolutely.
everyone know that I'm a victim and woe is me. But I think what you're missing is welfare. Sometimes for a lot of people is rock bottom. Like if they don't make a lot of money. You're right. We do have income houses that are low income houses, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it's a necessity, but I don't know that there shouldn't be a timeline. I think we should look at what we don't look at, and I think what we need to start looking at. Like, I'm a moderate liberal, I guess, and what I think we need to start looking at. We have welfare. We have this great welfare system, and people get money, but we don't ever look at, well, what are we going to do to help them get off it? What are we going to do? What are our best practices? Let's look at the 5 out of the 100 that made it. What is different about them? What is unique? Now,
So
for
I'm going to
them,
stop you
it's
there.
because they're driven.
I'm going to
But
stop you
that
there.
is one that got right up teacher that's into them, that got childcare when they couldn't get childcare because they had a family support. Because you're not getting childcare if you're on welfare. I'm sorry, there is no babysitter in the world that is going to come and work for someone who that is on welfare. You can't afford childcare. You can't afford childcare. You can't afford to leave your house and go to school. So we
But
have to look
that's
at
the
that.
issue, is that that's all being subsidized. So there is care. So when you have these opportunities for care, so let's start adding it up. Let's start adding it up. If you're paying $200 a month for an apartment, let's say you've got a 2 bedroom apartment that you and your child are living in. Let's say you've got 2 children. So you've got a $200 a month apartment that's going for market rate of 2,000. You're $1,800 to the good, right? By not doing anything. Now, in the next step is daycare. Trudeau and Ford are trying to put $10 a day daycare. Otherwise, it's $40, $50 a day. Not if you're on welfare. We're going to cover that so that you can go and get an education. That's $40, $50 a day times 30 days in a month.
But what are the reasons they're covering the childcare? Is it because
I've got an
they're going to
election
look
coming
for a
up in
job?
Ontario.
No, no, but because they're going. No, I'm talking about right now. If
Yep.
a man with a child, or a woman with a child, or a family with a child want daycare, what is the reason for it? Like,
Well,
what
I
can they
think
say to the government to get that?
I have a
Like,
child and I need daycare. That's how
you
silly this is.
really think it's that
Yep.
simple?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
disagree. You obviously have never been to a welfare house office. It is a lot more complicated than just saying, like. There's a lot more to it. If you can't read, you can't write, you can't, you have a low self-esteem and can't function in that element. Not that all welfare people. I'm not saying that at all. There's a lot of welfare people on welfare that have all these skills, but I'm just saying that it's not as easy as you think, because you and I are strong individuals. When we see something we want, we go and get it. When we want a job, we go and get it. When you
I
don't have
think
the
we
skills and you haven't been taught the skills, and you just don't, and you don't have that drive, then it changes things. And
I
it's
think
not
this
as easy as
goes
you think.
I think this goes back to the victimhood. I think this goes back to victimhood, is the fact that if we're having people that we're allowing to continue to play a victim, is that, oh, I don't have that, I don't have the skill, I don't have this opportunity that's been handed to me, I'm not as privileged as somebody else, because that's more or less what I would argue that you're stating, is that there's a privilege issue that we have here. uh, then what we're doing is we're continuing a conversation around, these people are lesser, they're different, they are something less than what the quote unquote normal community should be. And we have to stop doing that. We have to hold them to an account and to a standard. And when we do that, we will see progress. But when we cut funding to programs like this, it's not out of, oh, these people are bad people. It's that now we have to give them an opportunity to leap out. You have young children that are at that point in their life. If you continue to pay for everything they had, and you just continue to allow them to stay at home and do nothing else, they will do that for forever. They will have no jumping off point. That's our job as parents. And I'm going to give you this. That's the job of the government in this role, is to give us a jumping off point.
Which is what I'm trying to say. And to
Right?
have a proper jumping off point, I taught my kids a work ethic. I taught my kids the proper way to go look a man or a woman in the eye and get what you want. I taught them how to, well, not well. I'm teaching them how to use finances now. I taught them a toolbox of skills. Some of them just from watching me, some of them that I told them directly. And I think if we can start looking at what we need to teach, that's the side of welfare we have to fix. I don't think taking away the welfare is going to help anything. It's going to make a lot of people unhealthy, It's going to make a lot of people fall on the sword. We're going to lose a lot of people before what you're saying is going to happen. You've been yourself have been, I'm sure, once or twice, maybe once, down on your luck, hit rock
Sure,
bottom, and
sure,
you could have easily just fallen apart. I
right,
know there were many times that I could have easily fallen apart.
right.
There were days, hours, minutes where I did
Yep,
fall apart. I didn't want to get up. I was on the canvas, knocked out, going, "Oh, this is where I lie. It's over."
yep,
But then I got up because my dad instilled in me. I had the skills. I was taught certain things. And I think if we can go back and look at the welfare system and go, what is successful? What is not successful? Let's look at that. How can we structure education into it? How can we make it easier for them to access the community? How can we, what do we need to teach in just general school so that when someone gets out of high school, they don't have to bounce into welfare? What can we do to improve the knowledge of our Canadians to make welfare a thing of the past, to make welfare not something that we strive for. It's something that we need in terrible situations.
right. Because the other way is that we are teaching and coaching to the lowest common denominator. The safety net has to be just that, a safety net. It can't be where we our systems are built to that to benefit that. That has to be our lowest level. We have to have our standards up here. And when people fall through, that's okay. We've built this, but what do we do now? And that's where I'm saying is that our safety net needs to be a little bit more porous. It needs to allow certain people to fail a little bit harder and a little bit farther than maybe where they are right now. And then from that, you're going to see, how do you not look around your communities right now and go, we have a bit of a drug problem. We have a bit of a societal problem around what addictions look like. And all of those people, I would go I would say that there is a common denominator between, for instance, disability, whether it's Ontario disability programs or whether it be other welfare type programs. If you have a debilitating addiction, you're not getting up and going to work. However, that check keeps coming. So we've got to figure out what that looks like. That's obviously another conversation for another time.
So,
However,
so wait, are you trying to suggest that people that are on these social assistance are the ones that are the only ones that suffer from addiction?
not at all. What I'm
Like
saying is that,
we have friends that are the same level that we are,
yep,
in monetary wise, not like that I'm saying that
yep,
they're a different level, that are highly addicted.
right,
They're highly addicted to coke. They do, well, not close friends, but alcohol. Alcohol is a big one. I have friends that are addicted to alcohol. I know it.
right.
They're just functioning alcoholics,
So now
right?
what I'm saying is, and this is where this becomes, politically incorrect. I don't care, you know me. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is that if you are living on the streets in your addiction, society is going to pay for that. We provide people with the support to live that lifestyle that they have become accustomed to. That's wrong. That's wrong. We need to address that. And by giving them more money or giving them the funding to continue that lifestyle is not helping them. So what do? We aren't addressing the underlying conditions. We're not addressing the underlying addictions. We are continuing to hand money out to people. That's not what we need to be doing.
So that's not in all cases. Like I would say that's a minority, but in the
Well,
cases
I would
where you're
ask you,
absolutely
hang
right,
on, hang
we
on, hang
do
on.
have a very,
I would ask you, in those situations where you have somebody living on the streets that have major addictive personalities, major addictive problems, do you think that they are self-funding their addiction in Canada? Absolutely not. That is being funded hand and fist by the Ontario taxpayer, by the Canadian government. Absolutely.
sure. So I will give you that. That's a small minority of people that's happening to. Like, I think that we're getting off topic here. I wouldn't blanket all welfare people as
No, no, no. We've
addicted to
separated this.
drugs.
We went, no, no, no. And I
I
said
would
that.
say that
I
we
said
do
that we
have a
have,
very strong a drug problem. And yes, you are absolutely right, because in the business that we're in, on the one hand, where we're landlords, uh, I I see maybe for one of my places 50 people, and out of that 50 people, 40 of them are on some sort of assistance, and their story is, I
right.
am just got off meth, or I just got off.
Right.
So I see what you're saying, but
Saying that welfare people are addicts. I'm saying
okay,
that addicts at that level tend to be on some sort of support
right.
in the mass.
I will give
So
you that.
the right. But so now what we need to do is we need to use cause and effect logic, okay? And we need to say we are supporting hand over fist these people that always have a case of beer in the fridge. Not now marijuana. You can go to the store. I think we've got more marijuana dispensaries than Tim Hortons in the community that we live. That's shocking, but the government gets their cut of it. So they don't care about giving it to you here because they're going to give you the dollar here and they're just going to pay it over here to Paul. They don't care. So have your addiction. That's fine. We're going to get your money. We're not worried about you going out and buying a new fridge or a new stove, or if you need to, like you did, they're concerned about make sure I get that money coming back in. We've changed from our economy from producing gross domestic products, right? And we're going to talk some finance stuff here over the next couple podcasts. But when a community is growing and developing and working together, you have a production increase, whether they're making widgets or engines or fridges or stoves or whatever they're building. Okay, we went from that in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and we manufactured everything offshore. We went to now a vice economy. We've got casinos. We got restaurants, bars, alcohol. We've got marijuana. We've got all of the vices of 40, 50 years ago. That's now driving our economy. Where do you go from there?
I'm not sure. So you're right. We're gonna. Apparently, my hands have stopped working, so I'm just going to keep them down for now. But you're right. We don't manufacture things anymore here where we live. All of our major companies are shut down, and if they haven't shut down, they've lowered production to just huge amounts and leaving people on the streets. And we have to look at, and the government has been looking at, how do we retrain these people? How do we take a 40-year-old man who has a skill in putting together cars, and how do we give them a skill into something else in this day and age, whether it be computers or something like that, so that they wouldn't have to be on the employment system or welfare system. They would have the next level of skill. But the other thing you were talking about was how we're driven by gambling and drugs, and you're not wrong. I see that now, especially in our community. You're right. It's shocking that there's less Tim Hortons than weed dispensaries. Weed dispensaries aren't a thing for me, but I know people who are high functioning that are using it. But you're right. When it becomes that the government is giving them money that comes out of your pocket and mine and everyone who's watching this probably, and that's what they're using the money for, yes, I have a serious problem with that. But like I said, if there's 100 people doing what you're saying, and 5 of those people get a leg up because we put them on a social assistance program, and they're not out buying drugs, they are buying diapers and fridges like I did, then that is worth it to me. What we have to do is look at that 5 people and examine it. What is different about these 5 people? How can we change that? That's where we should be spending our money on programming. We should be spending our money on how do we effectively help people who need the step up. What is their step? What do we need to do for their step?
You liberals. Bleeding hearts, liberals.
You sound like a victim now.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if we've solved anything today, but I think we've had the conversation certainly. So
sure.
I guess, like I said, what we're talking about here today, some of the things that we're going to talk about in the next little while is like you had talked about at the first of this, is some of the finance things. We're going to have some conversations, break down some scenarios where we see the world going. And I've always kind of had the mindset is that if you can follow the money, you can kind of figure out where the world's going. So look forward to our next one, and we'll go from there.
Whereas I'm hoping to have some conversations about like weight loss and mental health and social programs and what's going on in the world, in the political scheme of, transgenderism and homosexuality and stuff like that. I also want to talk more about huggy
your lifestyle. I think that's what they call it, right? Lifestyle, is that what it is?
Not my lifestyle, but a lifestyle that I know people have.
Right.
And I just know that we're going to cover a vast number of topics, and if you take the time to listen, I hope you find something to enjoy. We're Soaring Profits, by the way. We just named ourselves. I think it's a fun name.
I like it. I like
I
the
like it too.
profits,
Yeah,
profit
yeah,
in capitalism, and
yeah.
yeah, I think it's cool.
But I will tell you right now, both of us have a lot of skills. This gentleman right here across from me uh, has self-taught himself, and from his dad, because his dad had businesses as well, knows so much about finance, so much about buying houses, so much of natural ability that if you don't take the time to watch, I don't know who you're watching, but you need to take the time to watch this guy. He is interesting. He's exciting. He gets pumped up about these economics in a way that I don't even understand. But when I sit beside him, I couldn't not get into it. I started off, I had very little money, but I made a lot of money. And then he taught me how to go into the markets and buy stocks. He taught me how to buy my house and turn it into a money making venture. This guy across from me, he may not look like much because his hair is kind of spiky. Uh, but I'm telling you right now, if you sit and you listen, you're going to learn a lot.
And vice versa, this guy, he lives a lifestyle.
Wow. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
No, I've blown your horn a few times. I'm sure I'll blow
You
it
have.
again, but we'll definitely do some of
Again,
these chats and
the
conversations.
lifestyle.
The lifestyle. That's all that's important, right? It's 2022, right? We got a cabinet. We got all kinds of things. I appreciate it, buddy. Well, hey, folks, thanks again for joining us at Soaring Profits. Patrick and James, please like, subscribe, and share.
And follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and of course, Facebook. And let's start a dinner table discussion right on this page right here. Let's start talking about the topics that we're talking about today.
Thanks again, folks. Appreciate it.